This episode is brought to you by ZDMS. Okay, guys, physical inventory. Most dealers do it once a year. Some avoid it altogether. And honestly, who can blame them? Closing the stores for days, paying staff to count parts, and still ending up with inaccurate data. It's a painful process that costs time and money. ZDMS changes that. With RFID physical inventory, one or two employees can complete a full store count in a single evening. No closing, no disruption. Just pull the trigger on a handheld scanner and walk the floor. No line of sight required, no climbing shelves, no bending under counters, just fast, accurate counts feeding directly into your ZDMS system. And because it runs inside ZDMS's perpetual inventory system, your data is always current. That means better analytics, less obsolescence, and fewer lost sales. This is the technology powersports dealers needed. And ZDMS is the only DMS in the industry to build it. Talk to your ZDMS rep today, or to learn more, visit zdms.com/fixit.
For those of you not aware, the NPDA, the National Powersports Dealer Association, exists to empower franchised and independent powersports dealers through services, programs, education, and advocacy, with the broader goal of helping dealers build a more professional, successful, and profitable industry. NPDA also emphasizes training, networking, dealer interaction, industry representation, and practical resources that help dealers navigate a very fast-changing environment that we currently operate in. This new NPDA Partner Series, which we are participating in today, was designed to give dealers direct access to the companies, tools, and people helping shape the powersports retail landscape. Over the remainder of the spring and summer, I'll be featuring NPDA partner organizations on an almost weekly cadence. So typically, there's going to be 3 of these each month, maybe 4, depending on what my personal travel schedule looks like. And these will give dealers a chance to hear firsthand what these partners do, where they fit inside dealer operations, and how their solutions may help stores become more efficient, profitable, and better prepared for the road ahead. Goal is simple: create an ongoing conversation that keeps dealers informed, connected, and exposed to ideas that can actually put us to work. The dealer-first, education-focused approach is consistent with NPDA's mission and current programming. For this first episode, excited to announce Chris from Rollick and Jacob from MotoHunt. So Chris has been described by Rollick as a dealer-focused leader who works on strategic programs across the OEM, dealer, and partner networks to help improve the customer buying and ownership experience. And Rollick's broader work in the market centers on helping dealers improve digital engagement, follow-up, and conversion. So I first met Chris probably coming up on 7 or 8 years ago when they started up the company. I believe I was one of your first customers.
That's right.
And still are today. And then we've also got Jacob Berry, co-founder and VP of growth at MotoHunt. MotoHunt positions itself as a powersports inventory management and lead generation platform built to help dealerships price smarter, appraise trades, track inventory issues, and generate qualified leads. Jacob's work and writing consistently focuses on practical dealership growth, used inventory strategy, operations, and digital marketplace performance, which makes him a strong fit for a conversation aimed at helping dealers sharpen execution in today's market. And as with Rollick, I'm also proud to say that I am a MotoHunt customer, so I am trying out everything that the NPDA has to offer. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris and Jacob.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, everybody. I know, Jacob, you're going to kick off first. We'll kind of break it up into two sections, and then Jacob's going to start and share his screen. Jacob?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mark, and welcome, everybody. Today, we hope to inform you of a few things. Our title of the presentation today is From Click to Close, and this is how the modern dealers in our industry are capturing and converting more customers through the online portals than ever before. So a little bit of my background. I came from a big dealership group, and this was my bread and butter. These are some of the power sports teams that we had trained, that we had, instilled a lot of the processes that are still being used today. But the digital lead was something that was very important to me to understand, and I hope to share some of those findings with you today. So let's talk about the different types of leads that an average dealership would get. Of course, there's the walk-ins, the be-backs. You have previous customers who have bought from you before, referral from family and friends. We have service and parts customers who may buy a bike from you from those other 2 departments. You have prospecting. These would be your bike nights. These would be your sales guys going out there and trying to gain their own customers. But the 2 that we're going to mainly focus on today would be the internet form lead customer and the inbound phone call customer. These are 2 typical customers that will come from your online efforts from your website or other third-party places. So let's talk about who this buyer is. And really, again, to capture the frame here of what we're talking about is to understand who this buyer online is. You're one, I'm one, Chris and Mark, we're all online customers at this point. But understanding the motorcycle purchase through that buyer's eyes, we just kind of need to kind of take a step back and understand them a little bit more. First of all, it's a person. These are not leads, these are real people. They're predominantly male in our industry, 35 to 54, experienced and informed, and emotional about this industry. They've already visited multiple websites before they ever land on yours. They're spending on average 14 plus hours researching before they submit a lead. And they're not a stranger to the product, they're more of a stranger to you, the dealer selling it. If we kind of talk about the customer journey in a holistic sense, they're getting bombarded with roughly 24 or more research touch points that an average customer would go through to go down the journey of this buying cycle. They're looking at comparing models on the OEM sites, they're watching video walkarounds, consumer sites, review places, OEM sites, they're talking to Facebook groups, they're doing research online, all sorts of different places that customers can find information about what they want, watch videos, and consume a whole bunch of media about it, even before the consideration phase happens and contacting your dealership. Here's another way to look at this. These are all the different touch points that a customer might go through in an average buying cycle when they're researching online or otherwise. The green section here in the middle, we're seeing 20% year over year with search engines, 20% year over year with video sites. And this graph doesn't even include AI, which is a huge component of how people are researching what it is that they want to buy, where they want to buy it, and even taking it a step further in researching on how they should buy it from you.
That's right. Jacob, yeah, we're seeing a huge impact of AI, people going into Google search now and getting, which dealership should I go to? I'm a certain age, I use these products, and I'm looking to find which dealership to interact with. So it's very important for you guys to be aware of it.
AI is huge. And there are also certain steps that a dealer can take to be presented on some of these AI, like OpenAI, ChatGPT. They can be a little bit better represented with their inventory or some things about them that it would recommend your dealership as well. So this customer of your dealership, they know more than you think. It sounds kind of obvious, but let's just kind of talk about the stats. OEM websites are visited 64% of the time, while dealer websites are visited 36. So they're getting it from the horse's mouth. Even for some of the pre-owned stuff, they're looking at past model years from the OEM specs, and they're really wanting to learn more about these bikes from the companies that make them. They've already read reviews, they've watched comparison videos and checked social media. And here's an interesting stat. 8 out of 10, so 80% or more, yeah, 60 to 80% will not buy the exact same unit that they originally inquired on. This can be a difference in the color. It could be a trim package. It could be with or without accessories. It could be a pre-owned. But not every single customer is buying the exact same unit that they submit a lead on. And furthermore, they prefer the fairness and transparency over financing deals. We see this a lot with the millennial demographic. They just want to make an easy deal. They want to buy what they want to buy. They don't really want to negotiate a whole bunch and go through this process at the dealership anymore.
Yeah, what I'm seeing, and I get these responses from customers on a daily basis. Some of the younger generation will not even talk to you unless they see we get an out the door price via email. They want to know freight setup, taxes. So we're seeing that a lot more in responses from direct customers.
Mhm.
Hey, my question was going to be, you say 6 to 8 out of 10 may not buy the original unit that they inquired about. Do you have the stats for the percentage of consumers who buy a different brand than they originally inquired about?
It's all included in that 6 to 8%. Yeah. So they're buying cross brands. This could also be affected by the financing approvals as well. Maybe they couldn't get approved on a new one, so they switched to a used one. Or maybe the Yamaha financing is a little friendlier than the Honda financing. And so it all has to play in with the different situations that they have. But they want to enter the sport. They want to enjoy it. And us as the dealer, we want to make sure that we're just kind of meeting them where they're at and providing them with something. All right, so this is a little bit of a graph for micro moments. So think about it like this: before they even submit a lead, which is the birth of the lead, right? When you first get it, there's weeks and maybe even months that lead up to this zero moment of truth. They call that a ZMOT. And so Google did a study a while back to classify the five major micro moments, which is kind of an oxymoron, but the five moments that make up what position the buying cycle is in for that particular customer. They go through a consideration phase of which bike is best for me moment. That's where a lot of the research happened. Is this right for me moment? They're looking at their financials and how it will improve their life. How can I afford it moment? And really, the last two are where we come in as the dealer. Am I getting a good deal moment, and where should I buy it moment, right? They're looking at your reviews. They're looking at how you've treated customers in the past. They're looking at how well you represent yourself on your website, and all these other things are included. Now, what's interesting about our business when it comes to the online customer is we, like the automotive business, have a mixture of an e-com and store retail type experience, right? Think about it like Amazon. That's a strictly e-com play. You're looking at things that you can buy and pay for online. We get about half of that. You can look at it and you can start half of your buying process there, but ultimately you have to come into the store and finish your paperwork and sign off and take delivery. So we have to kind of meet them a little bit, knowing that that's the world that they're used to on the e-com side. They are shopping multiple dealers at the same time. Don't assume that you have the only thing they are looking at. That comes with some of the questions and polling that we've done. The customer knows more than you. My mentor often used to say that the customer's pool of knowledge is only 5 feet wide but a mile deep, while our salespeople at the store, it's 5 miles wide and only a foot deep. Right? We have to know a little bit about a lot, while the customer knows a lot about a little because they've narrowed it down to their choices. And finally, the customer is wanting to communicate digitally now more than ever. This is email, this is website chat, this is text, this is Facebook Messenger, and these are phone calls, even before they enter your store. If you do not have a good process for that, you're probably already losing out. So now we've gotten to the consideration phase. They've narrowed it down. It's time to submit that lead, right? Where are customers going to do this? Well, I've kind of classified them into three major buckets: a good, better, and a best. Now, the good ones, myself included with MotoHunt.com, we've got GoRollick.com, Cycle Traders on there. These are all your third party vendor places where a majority of inventory is loaded from all sorts of different dealers or sellers, and they can shop a lot of different bikes from a lot of different places in one site. The second best is going to be your OEMs, because again, they want to hear from the horse's mouth. What are the specs? What's the seat height? How much gas does it hold? What's the horsepower? All those things included. And they are lead generated sites for the most part. Polaris and Yamaha probably being some of the two best ones that you'll get in terms of volume. Now, the best ones are going to be anything that you own as a dealership. These are your websites, and that goes along with your website widgets. These are your trade intake forms. These are your get quote forms, payment calculators, finance applications, contact us, all the various forms that live and breathe on your website. But there's also your Google My Business. How well are you representing yourself and getting reviews and keeping your information up to date on your Google My Business? If you upload YouTube videos, if you're consistent on your social media with Facebook and LinkedIn and TikTok and Instagram, they're seeing only your information, they're feeling your culture, and they're kind of getting a sense for what kind of dealership you are. And so those are going to be the best places to go. Now, the psychology of submitting a lead is a vulnerable one for most customers. It is them raising their hand after they've done this week, this month, this half of year of research. Up until this point, they found what they want and they hit go. Now it comes to you. What now? What happens, right? This is a passion purchase. They have been dreaming about this forever, maybe even months long. Their excitement is at their peak. The juices are flowing. The ether is in the air. Your job is to meet that energy, not to kill it. And that's where I see a lot of these programs go wrong with these dealers that are answering these email leads or these phone call inquiries. The first dealer to respond with a human personal touch wins the emotional high ground 100% of the time. Let's just talk about how we kind of failed. This is the latest power sports industry ILE that Pied Piper put out. I hope all of you have seen this. Fran is a super smart guy. He's been doing this study for many, many years now, and they kind of do a 5-year rolling. Basically, what he's saying is that half of our leads are not being answered. right? So everything that I just said about the energy, the momentum, the months of consideration that goes into a customer actually putting in their information and hitting submit on your get quote dealer spike button, half of them are going without an answer. And this has been happening for 5 years. 5 years, no progress. We have been at the same sucky place for the last 5 years.
No, 10 years ago when I started doing the 20 group deal, that was one of the first tasks that I took on was before 20 group meeting. I would go and shop all the dealers and submit a lead online. And 10 years ago, it was about 32% of dealers didn't respond to a lead within a week. And last year, right before I wrapped up my 20 group tenure, I think I shopped 3 of the groups that we were in. And that number was still almost exactly the same. About 32% of dealers don't respond to a lead within a week. And I guess I continue to ask myself the question, or ask dealers the same question. You want to spend more money on marketing just so you can give customers more people a continued terrible experience?
And Mark, we just ran it again. I did LeadVenture AI, another company entering the industry. If you guys talked to them yet, Woody over there did several hundred dealers with us, and it was 38 out of 100. Only 38% replied to an online digital lead. So we're seeing it. We're here to help, guys. We want to share as much strategy as possible and process to help you guys follow up with these.
For sure. So what it comes down to is that the leads are being ignored, but I would almost say they're not being ignored. They're just not coming through a good process. Is it a lack of personnel? Is it a lack of a system like a CRM to have all of these leads funnel into? Is it an accountability problem? There's all sorts of different things that you can probably point your finger to and say that's why it's happening. But regardless, it's happening, and there's something that we need to do about it. Now, for the customers, this was an interesting stat as well. For the other half that do get answered, only 1 out of 10 dealers offer an appointment for a web lead, which is kind of odd, right? Again, we run an e-comm / store retail experience type business. An appointment is kind of an essential part of closing up that customer and getting the deal finished. Why wouldn't we want to be appointing our customers, or at least inviting them in at a certain day and time that we can take care of them? The last shocking stat here is that 45% of power sports dealers score under 40. Now, again, this chart here that we're looking at, this is a satisfaction index for how well we're responding. So if you look at the very bottom line here where it says memo and the automotive average, they're sitting at a 71. So you see they've incrementally increased from 2022 all the way through 2026. So their best satisfaction scores at a 71. We're at a 55. Not very great.
You know
Here's another way.
what's
Yes.
crazy about that metric too is if you can go back one slide real quick. Harley Davidson, anybody who's in the industry knows that they are struggling more than any other brand right now. You would think that they would be the ones who would really be capitalizing on every opportunity to sell every bike, and yet they're actually going in the opposite direction.
They are, yeah. They've had a 13% decline since 2022. Yep.
That's crazy.
Here's another way to look at this chart. This is by brand, obviously, right? So the Indian dealers and the Harley dealers, those are two American V-twin. Most of the time, Harley Davidson will be standalone. There are about half the dealers are standalone for Indian. So what is it about these two dealers that are consistently scoring higher than some of the metric or off-road brands, right? But regardless, our average in the industry is a 44. You can see that there in the middle line there in white, while the very bottom of the line of Memo 2026 automotive industry, their average is at a 71. And I think BMW had the top spot in the auto side. And I don't often like to compare ourselves to the automotive industry, but it's really kind of the only industry that we can compare ourselves to because they operate a similar model. Sales, parts, service, inventory, etc. You name it, we kind of do the same thing, just in a whole different world. But the point here is clear. While you wait to respond, your competitors already are. The auto dealers were 78% of the time. We answered 47% of the time. The gap between you and the top dealers is actually not that huge. Actually, Mark, I think that you said it. I'm going to coin your phrase here, but you said you just have to be a little bit better than not great to win, right? Or something like that in effect. Can you say that again for us?
I said that I think the exact term was I said you only need to be bad to be better than most of the competition.
That's the term there. Yep. So you only need to be bad to be better than most of the competition. So we're all kind of bad. We're all sitting in the same boat is what I'm saying here. All right. So what's the answer here? So it's definitely not volume, right? We're not able to answer half of our leads anyway. So what do we do about it? And to Mark's point earlier, you don't really need a whole lot of marketing to increase your leads if you're not doing well with the ones that you have now. A dealer with 100 leads and a great process will outsell a dealer with 500 leads and no process 100% of the time. You can always do more with less if you put a process behind it. What is that process? Let's talk about it. Here's some 5 steps that you can kind of take to kind of understand a little bit more about what you may or may not be doing. First of all, the day one is the birth of the lead. So let's celebrate this with them, right? Everything that I just said for the past 20 minutes now has been all about the moment leading up until they submit the lead and then us failing to meet them where they're at. So let's celebrate with them at an energy level. Let's look at the sourcing. What platform did they come from and reference it? Oh, you came from MotoHunt.com, or you came from our website, or you came from this Polaris OEM website. Do they have good contact info? What's missing? Most of the time, a customer will not put in their phone number because they don't want to be called. So then our only medium for communicating with them is through email. Do they have a question? One of the studies on the Pied Piper survey is that most of the questions go unanswered if they do get a response. And again, that's half of the time, right? So can we respond like a human? Do they have a question about something? Is there something more that we can offer in their inquiry? Know them. Have they been here before? Can we look them up through our CRM, through our DMS? Have they bought parts or service from us before? All of these are little pieces that you can kind of collect and gather a little research on every customer. It may take a little bit of time, but you'll get pretty proficient at it. I would also put them into a Google search. It's wonderful to see them on Facebook. Maybe they have a LinkedIn profile. You can learn a little bit more about them and personalize that first response. And then obviously, this is what Fran from Pied Piper I had just said is that at the very least, if you're going to respond, try to do it all in that first day before they go home for the night. So respond to everybody at least once, and you'll see some of that Pied Piper stuff escalate in terms of not getting responded to at all. So that's my part of the presentation here. Again, it was leading all the way up into how they're considering your dealership, how they're considering the products that you sell, them submitting the lead, and you getting the first response. Here's my info if you'd like to talk a little bit more about this, or if you're interested in listening to the podcast. I also run a podcast called Dealership Fix It. That's our website for MotoHunt. And now Chris is going to lead you into the post lead first day part of it with the nurture programs.
Those who don't know me, Chris Yeloushan, Mark mentioned I've been with Rollick for about 8 years. My focus, born and raised in an outdoor recreation and equipment dealer in Tampa, Florida. I want to help dealers find, win, and keep customers, right? We work with about 150 OEMs and over 4,000 dealers. And our focus is to educate, inform our dealers to make them be more successful. So to kind of piggyback on what Jacob has said, I mean, this is pretty clear. Buyers don't disappear. They're just buying on their timeline, not yours. With all the research we've done at Rollick, we see 49% of power sport customers want to buy within 30 days. It's pretty impactful, right? So we know that first response is so important because we know 49% of them want to buy that first initial time frame. The other 31%, so 80% total, want to buy within 1 to 3 months. So response time matters. Efficiency, having a process is so important. And we want to make sure we're sharing how to do that from a follow-up strategy. The myth I was here, and I'm in the field, I'm a secret shopper like Mark is all the time, in person or over the phone. A lot of the dealers tell me the lead's dead after 24 to 72 hours. It's dead, totally dead. Absolutely not. Consumers are buying up to a year later if the follow-up exists. Rollick did a future of buying study a couple years ago with over 27,000 prospects and owners, only in recreation, and pulled all the data together. You can see here it's pretty, pretty evident of what customers are doing. I personally get 5 to 7 emails a day on these email nurture responses from customers. Here's a great one. No one called me back or responds to my emails or voicemails. What do I do next? And Jacob said that once they submit a digital online lead, they're asking your information. What do I do next? What's the next step in the buying journey? I have no idea, right? Your sales team is to guide them through that buying journey. Another
I,
example. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I don't think we're as draconian anymore, but back when I was the GM, if we ever had distributed a lead to a salesperson and then I got one of those emails where somebody didn't follow up, if the salesperson couldn't prove that they actually followed up using in kind, the same way that the customer had reached out to us, then they were taken out of that rotation for 90 days. So
Great idea. Fantastic. That's exactly what we see. I mean, we're seeing these on a daily basis. Another one that, to Mark's point, this is a direct reply from a customer. So this gives to, a GM or the owner of the dealership. Good morning. I sit inquiries at 3 dealers on a new side-by-side. I purchased a new 2026 from the first dealer to respond to me within minutes to help answer my question. So there's a lot to unpack. Mark, you know this in the actual response. The first dealer responded to them, responded in minutes, and they answered all their questions. Right. I think that's a key is so many people apply to a digital lead and have multiple questions and the dealer just says, hey, how can I help you? And they won't go into detail and answer those specific questions. I think it's huge. The other piece I want to share is these customers are expecting a multi-channel approach. They're expecting a phone call, a text, and an email if you get a phone number when that lead is submitted, all three. They're going to tell you within minutes when they reply is what's their preferred method of contact. There's a perfect example of a customer, was another response I got from this past week. I'm on the phone all day at work from 9 to 6. I can't answer the phone. Please email or call me after hours. The hardest part is most of our dealerships are open 9 to 6. So how are you going to reply to that customer, answer their questions, try to find the product that fits their riding needs if you can't talk to them during normal working hours? And that goes back to Jacob's point of how can we schedule an appointment? You should have a way to schedule an appointment with those customers digitally versus doing that. So what we've seen is Rollick right now is powering a big OEM in power sports where we're doing an automated email nurture campaign. Those dealers that are signed up on this program by the OEM, we're seeing a 36% increase in close rate for those customers who receive a follow-up nurture email versus those that do not. That's a huge number, right? So to Jacob's point is like, once you're following up with them, are you having an email cadence to do that? This is what they're expecting, right? So they're expecting email. 66% are expecting an email the same day they put a digital lead in, a phone call the same day. 52% are expecting ongoing communication up to a year when they put a lead in. If they're looking to buy it later, they're still replying to emails up to a year later. And what's interesting in Rollick is some of these emails, we're seeing not the autoresponder, the first email, we're seeing the 5th, 6th, or 7th email with the highest open and click-through rate, right? You wouldn't expect that 60 days later, but is just as high as the autoresponder email, replying back, asking questions, trying to figure out what the next step is to make that purchase.
I always try to point out to dealers, and you two probably know this, but I talk to a lot of power sports dealers, and you kind of ask, what's your goal to follow up with a customer? Sometimes it's 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks for some dealers. But in the automotive industry, when you talk to dealers over there, they won't even give you a time anymore. The good ones, they just tell you that our goal is to respond to that customer before they've left the keyboard.
That's exactly right. If you put and that's a good point, Mark. If none of you have done an auto lead recently, pick a Toyota dealer, pick a Honda dealer. Those are used to almost all digital leads. The response time, call, text, and these guys, a year later, I put a request in on my Ram truck. I've already bought it a year ago. I'm still getting replies from the dealer I put a lead in if it's asking me if I'm in the market again, right? They're relentless. I mean, obviously, our industry, we don't have to be that relentless unless we want to, but we're seeing it across the board in that industry. All right, so this is what happens. So after a digital lead is submitted, there's 3 distinct buckets. These are just buckets that I can prove after getting 5 to 10 of these emails a day. Number 1, no one responded to me. No call, no text, no email. I got no response. Number 1 reason customers are coming back. Next one, specific questions. I ask a specific question about the unit, how I'm going to use it. Like Jacob said, how much gas does it take? What's the CCs? All the different criteria. Everybody's ignoring those questions. And Mark, you posted a ton of those examples from customers who always are asking questions. And we just forget that.
Yeah, I have a 10-point scale that I grade dealer responses on. And my power sports average over the last few years was at a 2.8. And is really one of the things that gets a dealer a low score on my scale is that you ask 1 or 2 questions and they just ignore them. And you would be amazed at the number of times where I get a response back where somebody calls me Mike and my name is Mark. You got multiple typos. They ignore the question, or what I believe is the worst follow up in the industry, even worse than ghosting a customer, is here's my phone number, give me a call.
That's right.
And that's just the one that, I'll pick up my hammer and I'll go to town wanting to smash my keyboard at that point in time.
And Mark, we're seeing these all day long. We can just pull multiple examples, but these are the three key buckets. And the last one is, can you give me a price, right? And the younger generation, Gen Z, they will not even come in your dealership unless you have an out the door price. It's really sad. That's what they expect because there's just so much Amazon buying. But they're just like, I'm not even going to come into the dealership that replies back with an out the door price. Those are the ones they generally go to. It's that trust and transparency that you cannot replace, or at least for
Yeah,
that generation. I mean, our,
I've
our
got
Gen
some
Xers are different.
I've got some good data from LeadVenture on a project that we worked on, looking at thousands of dealer spike websites. And, the thought process from a lot of dealers about not having a price on their website is one of two. Either, there's map rules and I can't advertise the vehicle's price at a competitive level. But if you're operating under map, so are all your competitors as well. So that one doesn't make any sense. And then the other one too is that dealers will say, well, I don't want to put a price on my website because that way the consumer is going to reach out to me and they are going at that point in time, I'm going to have their contact information. And the reality is that if you take all of the pricing off of your website, your lead count actually will go up. The quality of the leads goes down dramatically because the consumers who are really in the market, they will go to another website that actually has prices listed. So I think it's a next lift on websites that have pricing versus those that don't.
And what we see too, Mark, is creating a one-to-one relationship. If they surrender their personal contact information, first name, last name, phone, or email, that's a one-to-one. You can share pricing with them one-to-one with that customer response. That's no problem. The map pricing applies to the overall website, but once you create that relationship, it adheres to the map guidelines. So it's pretty interesting. Thanks for that feedback. So the other thing is when you're talking about a cadence, we have 20 years of experience kind of doing this email nurture piece. And it's got to be, so make sure your dealership has a strategy on, is the cadence reasonable? Like we said, 49% of PowerSport customers want to buy within 30 days. The other 31% want to buy within, 3 months. So does your cadence follow up and you have a cadence following up with an email, a phone call, a text all throughout that buying journey? If you give them the opportunity, ask them what their buy time frame is. They'll put it in there 9 times out of 10, but make sure you have a full nurture strategy or follow up where you have a cadence of going out based on their buy time frame, different subject lines, different images. And I'll show you what we do here is kind of help having a dedicated email strategy to where you can have all about your dealership. Jacob mentioned having your social media links, right? They can link to your YouTube videos. They can link to your Facebook, your Instagram. They can see images of your dealership. All of the dealerships put all of their staff here. They take a picture of their staff in front of their dealership. That's their first email. That personalizes the buying experience for that customer. Tell them about you. Tell them about how long your dealership's been in business, what you can do for them, and then give them the ability to schedule an appointment. Jacob said that very clearly. How do you give them the ability to schedule an appointment? Put it on the email, click it. Once they click submit, they'll give you date and times to looking to come in on the dealership on when they're not working. Other thing is search inventory. We're actually pulling dealer inventory feed and then pulling AI images. So if they submit it on a Polaris Ranger, we're going to show similar products in stock on that email when they go through the search and they're seeing a new fresh email on that email response. Get financing. So many people want either pre-qual or get financing. So link it right there. They can link right to your finance app, link right to your 700 credit, and you can get that customer financed. Because a lot of customers won't pick up their phone, right? They won't answer your text. But if you send a dedicated email like this, just makes your dealership more personalized. And everything Jacob focused on is personalizing your dealership why buy from you. The other thing I want to share is just reporting. You should hold your partners accountable. Mark's always good at this. He calls everybody out if they're not holding accountable. Make sure you're getting for your partners reporting. What are they and sharing results? Am I getting ROI, right? Am I getting results for what I'm paying for on a monthly basis? I hear all the time, I'm getting $3.99 to death from all these providers. Hold them accountable, right? Make sure they're having an ROI for what they're doing for your dealership and really helps that follow-up process. So for me, again, I have a QR code here. Any more questions about what we're doing at Rollick, you click on the QR code. Easy to get a hold of me, chris@rollick.io, or a phone number that's right here. Jacob,
So
Mark,
I've
you want
only
to add anything?
I've only got one question at this point in time that came up from David, and he asked if MotoHunt was going to get more into the off-road industry. And I just asked for clarification there. And he said Polaris Ranger and ATV, Can-Am Defender, etc. And I actually pulled up my MotoHunt site. So I was going to put that on the page. Maybe you want to answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely. There's two places in Hunt that a dealer can look at. One is on their premium tools, which is a dealer site, just like Mark is pulling up here. So we are for sure in the off-road space. We're very good at it actually, with VIN decoding and understanding all of the different off-road ATV, UTV models. But if he's referencing what a consumer site would have, so we do have a consumer site called motohunt.com, but we also have a sister site called atvhunt.com. And so we do list your inventory when you're a MotoHunt customer. We do list your inventory here for sale that customers can look at, browse, and submit leads on.
That answer your question, David? Any other questions
Thank you,
from
David.
attendees?
I want to bring up some commentary on Chris's piece there. When we're talking about autoresponders, I encourage everybody listening to this to submit a lead on their own website or through one of their third-party vendors that they subscribe to at least once a month, and create a new Gmail if you want to go through the whole experience, but just kind of see what emails you get back. I would be encouraged for you to do this because you might be surprised at what kind of action you get. Typically with your auto responders from the platform, like even your own website, and they all do it, there's maybe one or two emails that goes out automatically from those vendors or from your website, even before your people or your CRM's custom autoresponder has a chance to go out. And so what I'm trying to say here is that when you submit a lead, you may get 3 or 4 emails within a matter of minutes, and none of them have to do with any of the things that the customer is asking, like what's the finance special or what's the rebate or is this still available? It's we got your lead is the first one. You're subscribed to our newsletter is the second one. Somebody to be in contact with you is the third one. And then you might have your system send out the fourth one, which gets buried in the inbox because they get pissed.
Jacob, to piggyback on that, I mean, what we're seeing as well, like a lot of the CRMs now, you have to go in and custom build templates. Like
Mhm.
it might just be one, and that's might all they get, or two, just like they're already built. Now, how do you have a strategy to have these all pre-built and done? So we build them all for the dealer, so it's set and forget it, so that's done. So no matter what, you're going to get a cadence of these emails, just the autoresponder, but all the way through the buying journey with real inventory. So how do you hold your CRM accountable, whoever you're working with, accountable to have this strategy? Because again, you're right, they get by the second or third or fourth email, they get pissed off and unsubscribe. So
Yep.
how do we make it relevant and engaging with that customer to where they can make a good decision?
All those can be customized, even from your automated systems. They can all be turned off. So I encourage you all to
Mhm.
just go through the process like you would, that a customer would, and just kind of see what kind of experience they get from it.
Well, I was just going to talk about that real quick. And, one of the things that I had trained dealers how to do in the last year was, and it sounds simple, but it's actually a little bit of work to go to Google and create a fake email account. And, there's a way to do it to where it's something realistic. You don't want it to be too stupid or too out there. And then actually go to your own website and shop your own dealership. And
Mhm.
you learn a lot of things through that process. A lot of dealers have never actually submitted a lead on their website. And so they don't understand how hard do we make it for our customers. And so I think that's a good learning lesson. I know that with one of the website providers that's out there, not going to call anybody out. But when we started doing that, we found that one of the website providers by default, they didn't even offer a box for consumers to ask a question. And so
Mhm.
if the customer wanted to know a little bit of extra information, they didn't have any way to do that. And so by submitting that lead and not telling your people that you're doing that, you're going to kind of see how your team, at least one of your team members, responds, how long that takes. And then I think the other thing that comes out of that, and I found this out personally when we shopped our website a couple of years ago, was that we had 5 different autoresponders that were going out to those customer leads that were coming in. And
Yep.
I just hadn't realized that, over time we had integrated our CRM with our DMS and our website and Rollick and all these other tools. And I just hadn't thought that everybody by default had an autoresponder turned on. And so I submitted this lead, and all of a sudden I was just barraged by all these emails hitting my inbox. And it was really kind of surprising to me. And so we had to go back through and spend a lot of time cleaning it up and making sure that our customers got just the information we wanted them to get and we didn't overload them.
Inspect what you expect, right? That's the
Mhm.
name of the game here.
You had earlier in your presentation, Jacob, you had some closing rates for dealers. And if you go back and you talk to the guys like Sam and Tony at Garage Composites, they'll tell you that the closing rate 20 years ago, 30 years ago was about 12%. And
Mhm.
when you ask them today, they'll tell you essentially the same thing, that the close rate is about 12%. I all the time will talk to dealers and they'll go, oh, my closing rate is a lot higher than that. It's 20, 25, 30%. And I think the reality in that case is that those dealers just aren't getting all their customers logged into CRM. I don't know. You might have an individual salesperson who primarily works on repeat and referral business who has a really high close rate. But I think as an average dealership, anybody who's closing at better than 15 or 16 points, they are probably just not getting all of those customers logged into the CRM.
Yeah, usually when dealers talk about a overall closing percentage, this is all sources included. I like to separate them because these are three very distinct types of customers that may submit on one of these three or all three. The website is going to be your best tool, period, right? If you were to separate these out, if your CRM has the capability to do a source or subsource report and you list all of them out, you'll see the volume in one lead form over all the others. You'll see closing rates better on one form or another. And so this is getting a little bit granular, but yes, I agree. The industry as a whole, as an average for all of your lead sources, including your inbound phone calls, because that is a lead source all by itself, that should be included in these numbers as well, should be around 15%.
I talk a
Which
lot of
if
smack. I talk a lot of smack about the auto industry, but there was a couple of years ago, Toyota came out with their dealer standards for the websites, and if you wanted to be top tier Toyota dealer, one of the things that they require of their dealers is that you have no more than 4 buttons on your VDP page.
yes,
And, I go, and we're kind of sinning here too, so I don't want to come across as hypocritical on our website. But, when I started that process, I found that a lot of dealers often had 7 or 8 buttons on their website. And, if you still got a print button and a share button on your website, get rid of that stuff, kind of clean things up for your customers. What do you find, because you kind of support that process now through MotoHunt? What call to actions really drive the most consumer leads?
well, what's funny is I'm looking for the podcast that you and I did that talked about these very same subjects. But yeah, limiting the amount of buttons and even widgets for that matter, or consolidating into a handful are going to walk the customer digitally through a better journey on your website to convert more through one of those 1 to 3 or 4 actions if it's truly necessary. I would also encourage everybody that goes on their website, if they have a button that says insurance quote or insurance something or another, forgot exactly what the call to action on the button says, click on that and let me know what you find. Go in the comments or email me afterwards, because every single site that has that same button as the default button stack on their vehicle detail pages, their VDPs, they all go to the same place, and it's all broken. So to answer your question, I mean, the call to actions that I've always seen work best, and we've tested hundreds of them over multiple years, is changing the get quote button to a check availability, and that gets the most volume if it's one of the native buttons on there. Obviously, you have a payment calculator that overrides most of the other buttons because people are more attracted to the finance aspect of it. But when we're talking about the get quote button, just in particular, if you don't subscribe to one of those little payment calculator widgets, most dealerships don't want to give a quote right off the bat. And so if you have a button there and the customer fills it out with the expectation that they're going to get a quote, and yet the person who half the time answers it doesn't give a quote, their expectations aren't being met. And so what I like to do is play around with the button wording. We call that a CTA, or maybe even a color from red, or we'll change it to green for money, or blue if it's in the theme of the website. And we'll see through a testing period, like a month to 90 days, what gets better action, this versus this. And then we'll go with that just based on the stats that we're getting.
So, Mark, we ran it at Rollick. So we did the last 8 years. Every year we've ran this over and over again. And our engage tool, the two number buttons are highest buttons are special offers. is the highest converting button at all, giving special offers because we have Sam's Club and AAA and all different partners where you do that. The second one is pre-qual for financing. So we default to any call to action button. Those are the top two, and those convert the highest. And we have 8 years of data to prove it. We even have a case study on it. So if anybody needs that, I can share.
You know, Thanks, Chris. Jacob brought up a couple of good points, and one of them, and I don't want to go off on storytelling mode here, which is easy for me to do, but this is probably going back 6, 7, 8 years ago. Google did they do a lot of A/B testing at any point in time. Google is testing out hundreds of different options, and one of the things they found on the Google search page was that just by changing the color of the links, that they drove significantly more clicks with one color and another. And this is, again, going back 7 or 8 years. Just that one change to the color of the links on their website was generating an extra $40 million for Google every month. So, a lot of times if you haven't kind of tinkered with those colors, then I don't think you want to have, reading rainbow on your website and multiple different colors and flashing and all this other stuff going on. But just kind of change it from that default gray to a red or a green or something that does a little bit better job of catching the customer's eye can definitely help to drive more leads that are coming off the website. The other thing that I would like to discuss as well, and again, not going to call anybody out, but now today we have a lot of the manufacturers that are wanting to add buttons and widgets and other things to our websites. You start getting all these widgets on your website. Not only do they conflict with each other in a lot of cases, but they really start to kind of slow down how your website performs. And a lot of times when you've got a customer who's using a mobile application to look at your website, using their iPhone or their Android, and they can't even see all the boxes in the fields to fill things out. And then they're trying to do it. And you got pop-ups that are coming up that are getting in the way that you got to close out. I mean, we really make it tough for a lot of our customers to do business with us. And I think that that's one of the things that you as a dealership will learn if you shop your own website is just how painful we make it for our customers.
And Mark, you're right. Red and green and red first convert the highest. So that's the other data point that I would validate with you.
Yeah, that A/B testing is really important. And, a lot of us dealers don't really have enough traffic to do it at a level like Google does. But, over a period of time, you can do some small scale tests on your website and figure out what works better. One of the other ones that I found really interesting, and I won't talk about who does this, but I had a dealer carries a lot of inventory and they tried 3 different things. They had listings with just the factory image. They had a photo booth, was a nice little turntable background, their dealer logo, and put the unit on there, take the photos of it. And then they just pulled the bike out of line on their showroom and took some good photos. And it was actually those showroom photos that performed better than the other two. I mean, factory images are never going to do very well, but I was really kind of surprised at that one where the units on the showroom floor outperformed the photo booth. And I think that's just because consumers maybe think that the dealer actually has that unit in stock or that they got it versus here's just a regular photo that, they pulled off the web. And I don't really know if they have that or not. So is there anything else you two would like to add?
No, thank you.
No,
It's a
Mark, I think
pleasure.
you want to have anything on NPDA. There's the to join NPDA. I want to have that slide pulled up. If you're not an
Yeah,
NPDA dealer,
Yeah, I appreciate that. If you're not a member of the MPDA, I am on the board, have been a member for years at this point in time. So we have, at this point, got more than 400 dealers who are members, and we've got a lot of different projects we're working on. So if you're not a member of the MPDA, we would really appreciate your support. It's not a whole lot of money, $395 a year, $1,000 for 3 years. Plus, you get some other benefits that go along with that. We've got about 50 partners at this point in time, including Chris from Rollick and Jacob from MotoHunt. So if you remember the MPDA, you've got some savings that go along there. We've got lots of other programs with our other partners to offer discounts on insurance, credit card processing, marketing. There's all kind of benefits that come along with membership in the MPDA. We are going to continue to do these partnership webinars throughout the rest of the spring and the summer. And so there is no cost to these. We would love to see all of y'all come back. We'll promote them through all the channels that we've got and try to make sure that everybody's aware of them. And if there's anything that you'd like to see that we don't currently have on the calendar, then by all means, I'm easy to find online. Just shoot me an email, send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to try to put something together. So we've got lots of contacts in the industry and should be pretty easy to find somebody who's an expert in any field or any segment of the industry that you're interested in. So again, we will make a copy of this recording available to everybody, as well as the PowerPoint presentation. I'm not sure where we'll put those up today, but it should be on the NPDA website and our social media channels. And hopefully Rollick can get these up on their site. And then Jacob, where do you put your content?
LinkedIn, yeah, and we have a landing page, dealers.motohunt.com.
And Jacob also does the Dealership Fix It podcast that he inherited from, who'd you get that from again?
We don't need to mention his name. Brian Croft.
Yeah, it's Brian started that podcast probably 5 or 6 years ago at this point in time, and then one Christmas he gave it to Jacob. So probably the only person I know that's given away a podcast as a Christmas gift. But it's been pretty good. Jacob's got the perfect podcast voice, and he interviews a lot of great people in the industry. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to his podcast, then something you can do on the drive to work. And he talks about a lot of subjects that are really critical to the success of dealerships. So
Thank
with
you.
that, I will wrap this up, and hopefully I think we've got another webinar is kicking off next week. I don't remember what the topic of that one is. As you can tell, I'm kind of winging it at this point in time, but by the end of the summer, I should probably be pretty good at this. So thanks for everyone who attended today, and we hope to see you again next week.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
As many of you know, taking physical inventory is something you do once, maybe twice a year, and sometimes you avoid it altogether. With large quantities of parts, accessories, chemicals, tires, and various other merchandise throughout your store, it's not a simple task to complete. There is a better solution. A solution that gives you the ability to cycle inventory counts anytime without disruption to your business. That solution? ZDMS RFID Physical Inventory. With RFID tags placed on inventory, you can cycle counts or conduct physical inventory with the RFID handheld scanner by simply pulling the trigger and walking around your dealership. RFID scanners do not require line of sight, so counters don't need to bend down under partitions, climb shelves, or position items to be visually seen to be counted in most cases. Contact your ZDMS representative to learn more about RFID physical inventory and how ZDMS is the only dealer management system in the powersports industry building the technology your dealership needs.